Hello everyone and welcome back to the Slow Car Salon. Now, my Miata is my daily driver, and daily drivers tend to see a lot more wear and tear than other cars do. And in the case of my car, unfortunately, my steering has seen better days in the case of the bellows and the tie rods, which I all have parts for to replace, as well as a few upgrades. So, follow along and let's get started. So I found a need to replace all of these components because when I was installing this front lip, as you'll see in the next photo coming up, I discovered this pair of torn steering bellows, and yeah, that was kind of the indication for me to go, all right, let's replace all of that in there. So what I've got are a pair of new steering bellows, inner tie rods, the R-Package Miata outer tie rods. So these are like OEM tie rods that have a little bit more spacing to kind of bring the tie rod angle down, which helps with some geometry correction, as well as the 5X Racing steering rack spacers, also to help geometry correction, now that I've lowered the car some more, as you saw in my previous coilover install video. So I figured those would be a nice little addition since I'm going to be in there replacing everything anyway. So let's jack up the car and get started. All right, so the car's jacked up, took the under tray off as well. As it turns out, these Muteki lug nuts, their anodizing or coating comes off really easy with an impact gun, so I guess be careful there. Anywho, so yeah, under tray is off, so now we have access to everything under here. Here's what I'm talking about with the steering boots, just for a live look. Yeah, it's torn there, as well as on the other side. It's already fully torn, I think except for the top. No, that's fully torn. So anyways, all that's getting replaced. Steering rack spacers will go underneath here, and everything will be hunky-dory. So I think the first step is actually to separate the outer tie rods from the knuckles. So I have a pickle fork, and I'm going to get in there and separate them with that. All right, so that's the outer tie rods removed from the knuckles. Put up a lot less of a fight than I thought, which is actually really nice. Now, I'm not actually going to separate the outer tie rod from the inner tie rod. I'm just going to try to peel away or like strip away the boot or cut it or something like that to then access the stake washer inside here, because I actually want to take this whole thing off as a unit so that when I put the new ones together, I can try to approximate the same length as these. Now, I will still be taking the car to an alignment shop just to make sure that everything is squared away, and I've also been having issues with the car pulling to the right on the highway, so hopefully I can get that all squared away. But that's going to be my strategy for pulling the rest of this off. And then once the whole outer tie rods are off, then I can try to sneak in the spacers. All right, both tie rods are out. Now, these actually weren't too bad. Once I unstaked the little washer on the end, they sort of just spun right off. I guess there's enough grease and lube under there that I didn't really have to deal with corrosion, which was very nice. But now that these are out, now it's time to get to those steering rack spacers. So what I'm going to do now is just unbolt these and then see how I can finagle them in there. Now, the kit does come with newer bolts, which I guess are a little bit longer to compensate for the extra space that these provide. Looks to be about, I don't know, about half an inch or so. So let's get these thrown in there. Okay, maybe not like that. And now the steering rack spacers are in. I will admit the bolt back here is a little bit hard to get to because as the steering rack gets bumped up, we end up getting a little closer to the AC compressor here. Of course, if your Miata doesn't have AC, you won't have this problem. However, what I found is that having deep sockets of varying depths helps a lot. For instance, this Craftsman deep socket was about 10 millimeters longer than this Mac socket. And that actually allowed me to fit my ratchet in there and get everything cinched down, which was really nice. Other than that, this is now pretty much ready to go. So let's take a look at the tie rods. Okay, so here are the old tie rods as they have been removed. And here's all of our new stuff. Now, I've already put together one of the tie rods just to kind of get an idea of how it would look. And I'm going to have to match this up as close as I can to the old piece. Now, don't count on necessarily the number of threads that are here or features like that, because they may be different from OEM to an aftermarket brand. In the case of my inner tie rods, yeah, they are Moog brand, so they're different. But the outer tie rod being OEM, the OEM R-Package, right there. So there's the part number for you, just in case you want to get a set for yourself. But yeah, the idea is I'm going to try to match those up as closely as possible. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to take it down to the alignment shop, get everything straightened up, but I want to try to set it as close as I possibly can, so at least it is still drivable. Now, of course, with the inner tie rods, you will get the nuts for tightening up the outer tie rod, as well as new stake washers, which you should definitely use. Do not reuse the old ones. Now, when you restake them, you can only... unlike the OEM ones, the old OEM ones, they were staked on all four sides. The new ones, you can do all four or just two. I've had good success with just staking two of them. Makes it less of a headache later down the road. Depends on also how easily accessible it is underneath the car or not. But anyways, I'm going to reassemble the new stuff together, match it up with the fronts, and also put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads for the inner tie rod, as that will help make adjustments easier later down the road so nothing gets seized. Alright, new tie rods are now in on both sides. Still haven't slipped the boot on over the steering rack yet, because I do have to grease up the ball joint here and also put a little grease reservoir inside the boot. That's the whole point of it. Now, it does come with these kind of like wire ties in order to secure the boot to the rack, but zip ties are just fine, and I'm just going to use that instead. Now, I also have to, now with the new castle nut here, put a cotter pin through it. No big deal. I also noticed, however, while I was under here, that on both sides, my sway bar mount has a bolt missing. Either side. I don't know how that happened, but when I put a new bolt in, I'm definitely going to put some blue Loctite on it, because that is a little concerning. I wasn't necessarily feeling anything super wonky with my front suspension, but yeah, it's definitely a little concerning. There's the other side and the missing bolt. Yikes. Well, good thing I saw it, and I'm going to get to it with this work, so that's a big relief. All right, and the tie rods are sorted both left and right. So it's time to take this now to the alignment shop tomorrow morning and get it all dialed in. Now, before I put it all together, I do have a couple more things to do, most notably among which is actually replacing the radiator air guide right up front here that goes inside the front mouth of the front bumper. Mine has seen better days, and it's broken on each side. I also have a brand new under tray, which I'm very excited about, and I'm going to show you right here. Well, here's my old one. It has chunks missing from it. I've had to drift stitch it back together in order to keep it all in one piece. So it's definitely seen better days as the original under tray. But my new one, oh, it's so clean, so nice. And an OEM part for just $70. That's great. Now, I am missing a few of the screws from the attachments because just stuff is broken or fallen off, that kind of thing. However, I did have to transfer over the little thread clip and screw for this access door here. So that was just real simple though. However, it'll be going back in. Finally, have a complete under tray once again. Very important part of the Miata, so that way you don't have crud falling through your engine bay and catches some leaks and spills in case you have those. So very, very exciting. Ah, beautiful, fresh under tray. Oh yeah, don't worry, I didn't forget to replace those sway bar bolts. I Loctited them like an angry union worker, so they aren't going to go anywhere. All right, let's put the car back down and get going in the morning. Now that I put the car back down, I can kind of tell by the looks of things the front wheels are really towed out. That's going to make for an interesting drive to the alignment shop, but I just got to be careful, I suppose. All right, well, back in the garage again because I forgot to stake the washers for the inner tie rods. Other than that, as you saw yesterday, my wheels are so towed out that it's pretty much undrivable at the moment, but that's because my inner tie rods seem to be a little bit too long as they bottom out on the inside of the outer tie rod. So I might have to take those apart as well and cut off just about maybe like a ½ inch off each end. That way I can get decent engagement into the outer tie rod and not have them bottom out. So gotta jack the car back up and get back in there again. All right, the cutting operation went a lot more smoothly than I expected. Just a quick note on the actual cut though, is that you want to leave the nut on your inner tie rod. That way, when you cut off the end of the thread, you can thread the nut down on the end and kind of reform any threads that may have gotten a little messed up. That way you can smoothly get it into the outer tie rod. So that's pretty much all I have left to do on this side. Of course, I didn't forget to stake the tie rod washer on the other side. So I'm going to do the same here, button it all back up, set my alignment somewhat straight, and also drop the rear end 5 millimeters because that's a setting change I wanted to make before the alignment is done. And that should be it. And so, many weeks after the alignment was completed, my car drove straight and true. Now, if you're going to have any other changes to your setup, including tires or a ride height change, I would highly recommend going to get your car aligned again. And many places will offer some 30-day or even up to a year's long warranty on your alignment, so you can always go back and have your settings adjusted from there. It really just depends on the alignment shop that does it. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.